G'day everyone, I'm back at the desk for another season, the 2023 season, and this special edition of DURKO's Notebook for the pre-season test. Got a lot to talk about, so pull up a pew, sit back, relax and enjoy the show. You wouldn't fucking read about it. As F1 moves to look to save money for the teams overall, as part of the budget cap, testing was limited this year to 3 days just in Bahrain, not the usual trip to Barcelona for the winter test. I'm just going to quickly run through the teams 1 to 10, just give a few tips or ideas, thoughts, my views on how the testing went over the 3 days. And I've based this, and I'm in total agreement with the ex-driver, current commentator Ant Davidson, and his view of the way the list goes from 1 to 10. First of all is RBR with the RB19. It's pretty much the same car as the RB18 from last year. It's just been modernised, different sponsors, different placement of stickers. But they've certainly upgraded their aero package, and Adrian Newey's been busy doing that. I've given them number 1 because they've just absolutely nailed the times. The car is just flat. They've dialed into the setup, especially around the porpoising issues that some of the other teams experienced. Number 2 is the Scuderia. The Ferrari have turned up with the SF23. Now, I've got to say, in my opinion, it's the best-looking car on the grid. That red colour with the splashes of black, it just looks unreal. I'd just like to see the Ferrari name on the rear tail, on the rear spoiler, look better in yellow, I think, rather than the white. Now, there was an interesting thing Ted Kravitz picked up, and this was obviously the dimple in the nose as it was going along the straights under force. They've just as a weight-saving measure, obviously, not to reduce the structural integrity and safety of the nose, but just on the top, it was actually the carbon fibre was that weak that was actually starting to dimple in under the air pressure. So, admittedly, it was only testing, so no other teams lodged any complaint about it, but it's something they're going to have to fix before next weekend as we go to Bahrain again for the opening race. Number 3 was Merc. They've turned up with the W14. It's just basically a black carbon version of the W13, which for them was a complete joke of a car, considering what the resources that team have, as probably the biggest team out there. I reckon it's the second best looking car, despite the fact of its performance. And again, it was pretty unsettled. The porpoising that was witnessed in that car, it was like a young son who's got divorced parents on Father's Day. It was really looking unsettled and not quite sure what was going to go on, because the back end was just bouncing. So I think it's a great looking car. It gets my number 2 tick for best on grid. But it's a car they're just going to have to work on. Now, there is a component that's gone into the cars this year to counteract or counterbalance the porpoising. Maybe Merc haven't quite got their head around it yet. Number 4 is Aston Martin Racing. Now, they've turned up in the AMR 23 with a completely different looking beast. They're all going for that same bathtub cockpit down the side of the AirPods, except for Merc, of course, and Williams. But the AMR 23 is proving to be a pretty good car. It had some reliabilities when Drogovic went out of the first trip. He got about a kilometre around the road and had to park it up. Then it took about half an hour just to recover it, which seems weird in these modern times. Being testing, you think you'd have more resources there to pick the cars up and get them back. Now, Drogovic is probably going to be sitting in for Lance Stroll, who's out with 2 broken wrists after he apparently fell off a motorcycle. So he might not be there for Bahrain. So it looks like Drogovic is going to get in. There was some talk Vettel was going to take the seat, but they've ruled that out. Now, number 5 is Haas. They've had a massive turnaround. They've had a huge cash injection from new sponsor, principal sponsor with MoneyGram. It may be... Somebody made the great comment, I think, despite their differences and not getting on with each other all that well, the Hülkenberg-Magnussen driver pairing is probably going to be a good thing, because they're going to drive each other harder than what it was with Magnussen and Mick Schumacher in the seat. So I think Haas are really dialed in that car pretty well to take the number 5 spot. And interesting, they found a way to save $250,000 on freight costs just by getting a smaller grid box. Not smaller grid box, pit wall, I should say. It's only a 3-seater compared to the usual 6-seaters that most of the other teams go for. So that's one way where they're saving money to put it in the development of the car rather than just somewhere so comfortable to sit on the pit wall. And number 6 comes at Alpine. Now, the A523 is a very low-weight car. Now, that could be something that comes into the fruition later on in the season with developments as the races go on. But they've got Gasly there, and obviously him and Ocon never were mates for a long time. They've obviously settled the differences as the Haas pairing have, but it's going to be interesting to see the French connection there. They're going to just, get that French spirit and drive that car forward. I'll be interested to see how it goes. I think Mars Safnauer is the right bloke as the team principal. He's been there for a season now. He's worked out what the go is with the Enstone factory, and I think he's really going to potentially push that team forward with a low-weight car. At number 7 is AlphaTauri, of course, the ATO 4. It's not much different. The only thing he's got Nick De Vries pedaling it, and he was quite open in his end of 22 season feedback on the car when he got into the old bus, the ATO 3, and he absolutely gave it to the engineers in no uncertain terms, describing what was wrong with the car, and they had to sharpen their pencil and take note of what Nick was saying, because he'd driven just about every other car on the grid in 2022 and had some very serious feedback for them. So I'll be interested to see where they go, but they go at number 7. There was some talk Red Bull were going to sell AT to whoever wanted it. Could Honda take it as another factory team? I doubt it. Could Porsche buy them out? That's a long, very long bow I'm drawing there. I think in 2026, when Honda are looking for another team to partner with, I think they go to Williams in 26 when Red Bull Racing obviously join up with Ford again. Now, number 8's coming in my team that I've backed for a number of years at 8, and I think the MCL 60 is absolutely rubbish. They've got it wrong. They've got the design wrong. The whole car's wrong, the setup, whatever it is. And I think it's probably the most unattractive car on the grid. The Haas comes second to that, the VF23. But the MCL 60, I think it's just dreadful. I know it's Zach Brown's, it's the way he markets the car. He gets his income from having a shitload of small sponsors. But I think, I don't know, the papier orange, it looks sure, I get it. There's a bit of black in there, but I just think the Google Chrome, wheel covers, there's just shit livery on it. It just doesn't suit me. And I think they haven't really turned in the times over testing that they were hoping to get at McLaren, so we'll have to just wait and see how they go in the first race or the first couple of races, even when they get to Australia and they start bringing the upgrades. Number 9's Alfa Romeo, the C43. They've got Andre Seidlin as the team boss now after Freddie's gone to Ferrari. I think Joe's a great driver to watch. Bottas has still got that fire in his belly to want to drive, but I think they've planted Andre Seidlin in the seat to obviously get the joint ready for when Audi take over and it becomes an Audi factory team effectively. So I think it's just a case of keep the door open and the lights on until we can get through the next couple of seasons. Now, sadly, number 10, Williams, I think it's probably the third best looking car on the circuit. I just love the blue. I love the Duracell airbox. I think it's really clever marketing from them. Albon's going to be interesting. I'm going to interested to see what Logan Sargent can do in that bus in the FW45 as he pushes it around. Now, I've given Williams 10 because James Vowell's a new team boss. After Jos Capito walked, he's admitted he needs to get his team together. The tech department is basically, two of them went with Jos Capito, so they're basically really behind on terms of development of the FW45. So we can only hope that with that Merc donk bolted into the gearbox, they can just keep trying to develop it and have a good season like they did in 22, because Alex Albon did deliver some better results for them than a back market team should have. So that's basically it. My run through of 1 to 10. After watching 3 days of testing for the first time ever in Australia here, I was able to watch testing live, which was great. But picking the 1 to 10 was harder to pick than your best friend's broken nose. But I've got through my 1 to 10. If you've got any feedback, please comment and tell me what you think your 1 to 10 would have been. But that's the way I see it for this year. I think it's going to be a Red Bull Ferrari tussle at the front end, the pointy end of the market, with Merc really trying to sort out that W14 to explain to themselves that they don't have a shit car and they're going to try and keep Lewis on board so that he can get an 8th title. That's going to be the big challenge for them. They've got to deliver the machinery so that he can get his 8th title. But I think, I'm going to call it Max will take the title out again 3 in a row with Leclerc, or potentially giving him a good run with obviously Chico and Carlos Sainz there as a perfect wingmen to protect the team number ones. So that's it for this edition of DURKO's Notebook, the pre-season testing wrap-up, and a few ideas and thoughts of mine. And I'll be back next week with another notebook covering off on the Bahrain Grand Prix. Until then, thanks for watching.